Hello, WEN members. This is Joe DiChara, entrepreneur turned into a CPA, bringing you another fantastic episode of Recipes for New Business Success. And today, I really have a special guest, one of my favorite people in the entire universe. Her name is Barbara Allison, aka Mrs. A. And I was introduced to her under the terms of learn to play with Mrs. A. Now, don't let her beautiful, calm, soothing appearance fool you. This woman is one of the smartest people that I have ever met in my life. So she might teach kindergartners, but I don't care how old you are, you're going to learn something fantastic today. So let me introduce you to Mrs. A, Barbara Allison. Hi, Mrs. A, how are you?
Hello and good morning.
Good morning. Actually, it's good afternoon here. You're on the West Coast. I am on the East Coast.
We sometimes call it the wet coast. We just forget that S.
So, let me just give a little bit of background on you, what I do know about you. We met about 7 years ago in Craig Duswalt's mastermind. You went from being a kindergarten teacher to an entrepreneur, and you launched your own website. And I got to tell you, what's the website?
Well, my very brand newest website is called stuckathomeactivities.com.
Awesome. And so what Mrs. A just did was brilliant, because there are millions of business owners right now stuck at home with the little ones. And we're not, I'm beyond that. My kids are all grown and married. I have a granddaughter, and so my son and my daughter-in-law are going through this. I have a bunch of family members with little kids, and they are, it's not easy. And if you have a kid, you're going to appreciate this segment, because Mrs. A is going to show us how to play in our business like a 6-year-old. And she's going to give us some unbelievable tips on how you can keep your little ones occupied and happy while you're still trying to do business, because business is still going on. Am I right, Mrs. A?
Absolutely. We have to learn how to mesh all these things together right now, because the world has shrunk to one house.
Yes, and so I had a radio show a while back, and I used to have Mrs. A every week go through the definition of a word, because what I learned is, words are powerful, and sometimes we take them for granted, and we don't really know the true meaning of them. And so Mrs. A was kind enough today, and Mrs. A, we might have to start doing this again, because it was awesome when we were doing it before. Mrs. A chose a word today that is a big part of my business philosophy and what I teach people, and the word is routine. Correct, Mrs. A?
That's right. That's the word for today, routine. And I love doing the word of the day on your radio show.
Well, you're going to get another opportunity. We'll have to talk after. I'll have my lawyer talk to your lawyer, and we'll work something out. So define routine now, because it is not just in our lives. This is a show for business owners, and the routines that we incorporate in our business manifest into our results. And so it's important. It's extremely important that we have the right routines. But you want to know something? I've always assumed that I know what a routine is. So can you just explain what the word actually means?
A routine we often think of as being the schedule, the order that we do things in a day. But for a minute, let's think of routine as the pattern of our day. And that includes how we feel about different portions of the day, how we feel about different activities. That's all part of the routine. And right now, what's happening in the world is anything but routine. That's part of the reason that we feel so disoriented and so disconnected, because we don't have that routine. A routine in a way, is also our base. We start with the routine and we can change from there. We're not locked into it. So we have to get away from the notion of routine as being the prison that defines our day and think of it as being the launch off pad.
Okay, so obviously everybody's routine has been, I mean, the way that I define routine. Now you're bringing emotions and feeling into it, which it didn't enter my mind. But everybody's routine. A lot of people aren't used to working from home. This is normal for me. You were working in a school with your daughter and your grandchildren, and now you're home. And so one thing that throws everybody off is changing our routine. So how can we, adapt to a new routine with a positive attitude?
We sometimes think of the weekends as being outside the routine, and that's one of the reasons why they're so wonderful. But we have to also realize that having a routine can be part of our productivity. And it also is part of the predictability. And that's something that we're really missing right now. And kids especially are missing that routine. So what we need to do is just think of right now some bare bones of things that we can do. Getting up in the morning, getting breakfast, getting dishes in the dishwasher, and then looking around and thinking, okay, what can we do this morning? If the kids seem to be able to handle an activity on their own, that's a signal for parents. Go off and get some work done. Meet again for some snacks. Have kind of a plan of something. It might be to choose in the morning some activity to do with the kids in the afternoon, with the understanding that they will go off and do their things and let the parents do something else and then come together in the afternoon. Or you might want to start the day together and do something individual later on. So just having a kind of a plan, a sketch of what the day looks like is going to give the kids a piece of reassurance. Yes, they will have attention from the parents. Yes, there will be some playtime. Yes, the basic needs are covered. And it also gives the parents some time to say, okay, this is the time that I need for me right now. And this is the time when you need to do something yourself. So we can use that routine as part of the package right now of being able to still be productive at home.
So what age group, so if you have a toddler, my granddaughter just turned, 1 year old. She's used to being home. I mean, she was going to daycare. That's over now. At what age do they start, responding to, listen, this is, here's your coloring book. You're going to sit over here and play while I work. I mean, when does this actually start working?
Well, one thing about 1-year-olds is there's going to be a time of the day when they nap. At least we hope there's going to be a time of the day when they nap. We'll notice that even with 1-year-olds, they can get engrossed in something, and it will keep them occupied for long stretches of time. For instance, an empty purse, and a child can put an object inside that purse, dump it out, dump it out, and that will take a long time because that child is exploring what's going to happen? Will it happen every single time? Cause and effect. And also the child is exploring his or her own power. I can put something in, I can dump it out, and it will happen the same way, and I'm making it happen. So it's not so much at what age will a child become engrossed in activity, as in what activity can we get the child engrossed in?
Wow. Wow. I wish I knew this when my kids were little. Where were you?
One thing that works to keep little ones involved is to run some water in the kitchen sink. Pull a chair up to the kitchen sink, throw some things in, and let the kids pour and dump out and splash the water around. And one thing about soapy water is it's easy to clean up. It's just soapy water. But that can keep a child busy and active and engaged for a long stretch of time while maybe the kitchen gets cleaned or the preparation gets made for the evening meal. With little ones, we have to learn how to work around them and have them often in the same room with us. But there are things that we can do, and water in the sink is a good one because then the adult can work at the kitchen table.
Wow. And how long would something like that keep them occupied on average?
You know, you can get a stretch of about 15 or 20 minutes or even longer.
Okay. I mean, that ain't going to do it for me. I'd probably need, you know, I need more time, 15, 20 minutes. You know, I can get a little done, but what are some things that are going to, you know, can I have like a bunch of activities lined up for them?
Kids sometimes will give us the clues of what they would like to do for next. For the child who's pouring the water and having a great time finding some things that float or sink, you might want to let that child rummage through the kitchen drawers and find some other things to put in the sink. I know it's hard to work in batches of 15 minutes, take a 10-minute break, 15 minutes, get a 10-minute break, but that can become kind of a new pattern, and the body will adjust and the mind will adjust to having to do things in quick spurts and take a break and then resume again. Another activity is a blanket fort. Now, were you mentioning to me when we talked earlier about someone pulled the couch out away from the wall and you could go play behind?
No, you mentioned that yesterday, and it brought back memories. I said, I remember that. It was like we were in, me and my two little sisters, we were in our own little castle. Nobody could see us, and we didn't want to come out. It was like our own castle.
And there are so many ways to make a blanket fort. Pulling the couch out away from the wall and using the couch cushions and to lean up against it as the roof is one way, or even taking the cushions off the couch and draping a blanket over it is another way to make a blanket fort. And you're right, you know, kids can do that for an entire afternoon. Yes, they will scurry out to get a few things, or they'll rummage in a drawer to find something, or haul in the toys until you think you have half the house behind the couch. But if you've been able to have a good stretch of time and look up every now and again and see that the kids are busy and engaged, that is such a sense of not just relief, but a sense of being in sync with the kids, because you're doing your work, they're occupied, and there's kind of a harmony that's happening. And kids will have lots of energy. I know that it's a challenge to direct that energy, but we can use that for us to watch what they're doing, watch how they're engaged and the different ways they're using things. And then when we go back to our work, we might find, oh, I have a different idea that I'd never thought of before. It's from watching their creativity.
You know, so I just want to go back a second because I'm thinking, you know, I wake up, I'm all full of anxiety because I know I got two little kids that are going to want my attention all day, and I have no idea what to do with them. So right away, I'm starting out on the wrong foot because they're going to feel that energy, right?
One of the ways that I like to start the day with little ones is a game I called Lumpy Tickles.
Okay.
When the kids are in their bed, pretend that you can't see them. Look under the covers to find, where they are. Are they hiding? And if you happen to find a body part, give it a tickle. Start your day off with just a few minutes of being together, of being close, of knowing how wonderful it is. And that kind of a game, that kind of silliness will kind of put the day on a different path. Yes, we're trying to get a lot of work done, but why are we trying to get all of this work done? The reasons are right there.
Yes, that's a good point. So all I would have to do is get up and start tickling my kid, and that's fun. It puts me in a better frame of mind.
And it puts the kids in a better frame of mind too. They know that it's going to be a really hard day. One of the reasons they're so demanding for attention right now is because of this uncertainty. The whole routine has been changed. They're not sure what's going to happen and what's going to happen in the future. So of course they want the attention of any adults that are around them. And we can understand that and just reassure them, yep, I'm here for attention. I've started the day off with some attention for you. We're going to have more time for attention later. It's just like adults have to do in a business, is to set boundaries. No, I can't be interrupted during this time. This is the productive time. And so we can set those boundaries with kids. They won't be as long and they'll have to be more flexible. But the kids need to have the boundaries. They need to have that routine for their own peace of mind right now.
So, it's I could see how this is going to help a lot of people because, we're not certain about what's going to happen. And we bring that uncertainty energy into the mix. I mean, there's no way around it. You could try to hold it in, but the truth is that, we're just wondering. And I've been trying to encourage people to don't sit there wondering, see what you can do positive in your business. But what you're telling me is by doing these activities with the kids is almost what I teach people to do in their business. In other words, you got to do it with intention. Instead of waking up without a plan, your plan is get up and start tickling the kids. How easy is that? And then have a few activities planned, like the sink thing, the couch castle thing. This is how people have to run their business. Am I on the right track here, Mrs. A?
We tell people to think outside the box. Well, when it comes to kids and play, we don't have to think outside the box or inside the box. Just think box. I read a quote that said, the greatest pediatric brain-boosting tool that we have is a cardboard box and some crayons. And that's something that you can do with a 1-year-old or a 10-year-old. Give them a cardboard box and let them play. It's something that we can do in our businesses right now too, because for whatever reason, we now have an opportunity to look at it and think, well, now what would be creative? What would be different? What would be some way that I can play with some of the ideas of the business? And I think people will find that when they're into something that's a little bit outside of the routine, a little bit outside the structure, and yet we have the routine as the base, they'll be able to find things that they hadn't thought of for their business.
I agree. I'm looking at this as a great opportunity for people to look at their business differently and to say, listen, I was doing this all the time, but now I got to do it a different way. And it brings to mind what I've been told for a long time. Think like a 6-year-old in your business, because 6-year-olds don't know about limitations.
I was really struggling when I was first asked to create a business plan because I don't have that kind of background and training and experience. What I do have, though, is a lot of stories. So I sat down and wrote my business plan as a story.
Wow.
Once upon a time, there was, and I put the characters in the story. I thought of a beginning, I thought of a middle, and I thought of an end. And this is how the people are going to react together. This is what they're going to want to create, as you said, for intention. And I found that when I translated my business story of numbers into my business plan from numbers into a story, that gave me a better understanding. And so people can ask themselves right now, what's the story of my business?
Wow. That's amazing. So, the last business plan I did was 200 pages. It was over, what was it, 15 years ago. I had to make all kinds of assumptions. There were all kinds of numbers because I wanted to take it to investors. And it was not a waste of time. It was an investment in time to show me what not to do. Now you're taking the whole business plan concept to a whole nother level, and I want to start using this because, how great would it be? It's like you're creating your own story. And this is what I expected to learn from you today, Mrs. A. Thank you so much.
Well, the human brain is hardwired for story because in a story we look for the patterns and we look for the interactions. And any business has to take into account the patterns and how the people work together and how we interact with product, with others, with the global situation.
Really? So, and we want every story to have a happy ending. So, when we're done here, that I'm going to do this. I'm going to create my own storybook. And maybe you could critique it for me. And because the story now has changed. The world has changed. We're going to have to look at things differently. And, I want to give our listeners some practical advice. And if you're watching live, give us a hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, give us a hashtag replay so I can see who's watching and who's not watching, so that when Santa Claus asks me to contribute to his list, I'll be able to tell him who's been naughty and who's been nice. But what I will do is Mrs. A is going to give us, I'm sorry, Mrs. A, I'm putting you on the spot here, but you're going to give us a couple of activities that we can do with our children so that we can do our business. And what I'll do is I will post the whatever she gives us in the chat box. And if you want to ask Mrs. A any questions, you can put them in the chat box and I'll make sure that she gets them. And before we end this, I'll give Mrs. A chance to tell us how we can reach her directly. So you want to give us a couple of tips, activities like the sink thing and the cardboard box thing?
I sure do. Those are the three biggies: the cardboard box, the sink, and now I can't even think of the third one. Oh, and the blanket fort. We all really feel like we want to curl up in our blanket forts right now and let the rest of the world go by. Another thing that you can do, in a great activity to get the kids to clean up a room, is to turn them into a robot or some kind of a toy monster, and complete with all of the sound effects, wind them up or plug them in, and let them clean up that room as the robot or as the toy monster that's going to put all of the toys into the toy box. Just turn those kinds of activities and chores into fun. Yes, we're going to have some work during this playtime when we're all stuck at home, but we can make that part of the package.
That's awesome. Is there anything we can say to the kids besides doing these activities? Because they're obviously they're going to see that things aren't the way they were, a couple of weeks ago. What can we do or say to them to reassure them that, this is, things are going to be better. This is all like, I'm thinking of a movie. It was the Italian guy. It was during World War II, and they were in a concentration camp. And the guy made his son believe that it was all a game. I don't remember the name of it. Do you remember that movie by any chance?
I kind of remember that movie. And, we can just share with the kids that things are really different right now. There's some germs that people are really worried about. And we don't have the answers, but what we will always have is we will always have a heart full of love for them. And we will do everything that we can to keep them safe and to keep them close.
That's awesome, Mrs. A. We're almost out of time now.
Oh, and how to reach me. Well, there's my new website, stuckathomeactivities.com. But for an email, because I have so many years in kindergarten, it's teacher@123kindergarten.com.
That's awesome. And what I'm going to put the link for your book on Amazon. It's free, correct?
It was on a free promotion on the weekend, but I put it at 99 cents so that anybody who is desperate for some ideas can find it on Amazon and can look through and see what kinds of activities will fit for their family.
So for 99 cents, you can get some work done by keeping your kids active. And I will post a link to it in the chat box here. And thank you so much for your words of wisdom and for being a friend for so long. And are there any, parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, we often think of school as being 3 R's. Well, right now we can have 3 quick R's too. One of them is to read. Read, read, read. Read books to your kids. Share stories if you don't have a lot of books at home. The second thing to do is to build a routine. It doesn't have to be an elaborate one, but that's going to give us all some reassurance. And the third thing is to recreate, or just to create. I had to have something for 3 R's, so I put it in recreate. Get creative when you're making lunch. Maybe you want to have waffles for supper. That's something that's a little bit different. So find those ways in a day to create and to recreate. So those are the 3 R's for getting through right now.
Thank you so much, Mrs. A. And just a parting thought, I believe that the time that we're going to get to spend with our kids now, not me, but you, if you have kids, is going to be maybe one of the greatest memories that you're going to have. Sometimes circumstances put us in positions that we don't want, we didn't plan on, but it's out of our control. So if you're lucky enough to have young children that need to be occupied, take the opportunity and you could learn from them. One of my greatest teachers was my daughter growing up because she would look at things from a child's perspective. And, I'll always remember that. So, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Thank you, Mrs. A. Visit Mrs. A at, what was it again, Mrs. A?
Teacher@123kindergarten.com.
Okay, that's your email address. And I will like they said, if you have any questions for Mrs. A, I will forward them to her. And hopefully, my lawyer can work something out with her so that she can come on often and give us some more words of wisdom.
I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Yes. So again, Joe DiChiara, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Visit bedrockbusinessbuilders.com. And if you want to book a free chat with me to talk about your business and how you might be able to hit the ground running when the dust settles, just go to timewithjoe.com. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you next week.